Hello, everyone. My name is Jeff Garrett, and I'm a librarian at Evanston Public Library. Welcome to part 3 of our tutorial on getting the most out of your library's digital newspapers. You may remember in part 1 we discussed finding and reading today's newspapers from around the world. In part 2, we talked about how to find articles in current newspapers and the newspapers of the past few decades on any topic we want. If you haven't watched these first 2 tutorials, we recommend it, though you can also just watch this one and go back to the other 2 parts another time. If anything is unclear, feel free to pause the video and even go back and play it again. At the end, if you have questions, we give you contact information where you can go or call for help. Evanston Public Library has 3 very deep digital archives of newspapers that are of the greatest interest, we believe, to students and adult researchers in our community. You can see here what they are. The New York Times back to 1851, the Chicago Tribune back to 1849, at least partially, and the Chicago Defender back to 1909. All of this is free for you to use from wherever you are, including your own home. All you need is your Evanston Library card. Today we're going to take a deep dive into history. Your library's historical newspaper archives include almost all the content of the original newspapers, except for commercial advertisements and the cartoon pages. In other words, articles, photographs, political cartoons, marriage announcements and obituaries, sports coverage, and all the classified ads. Most content is searchable by keyword and keyword phrase. Whatever you see on the page is searchable, with the exception of cartoons and photographs. These are not keyword searchable. And what you get back from your searches is a facsimile of the actual item. As you see here, either as a clipping or displayed as it looks on the entire page. That's really your choice, however you would like to see it displayed. Here you can see the difference between what we call the facsimile view on the left and the same content in full text view on the right. Facsimile view is a picture, like a photograph, and it usually comes from microfilm. And you can cut and paste it as an image into a document, like a report you're doing for school. The full text can be cut and pasted as text. You can change the font, you can enlarge it, you can even change the Mississippi River here in this report to the Amazon if you really want to, but of course we don't recommend doing that. Now, if you worked your way already through our 2 earlier tutorials, then you know about the ProQuest Global News Stream. It is all full text. You don't see it the way it was shown on the printed page in the original newspaper, or as it's even shown online if you have an online subscription. With the historical archives, it's exactly the opposite. You see the image of the page, but you can't copy and reformat the text. They are both very powerful tools in their own way. In some cases, you have access to both the image of the article and the text of the article. The New York Times has 37 years of overlap between the global news stream and the Times historical archives, and more is being added to the archives and, of course, also to the global news stream all the time. For the Tribune, we have 12 years of overlap, and that too is growing. For the Chicago Defender, we currently lack any digital coverage for the years between 1975 and 1999, but we are hoping to correct that at some point in the future. To show you how you can use these archives for real research, we're taking an example from Chicago history. The far too little known riots that occurred in Chicago in July 1919, it cost at least 38 deaths and was started by a black teenager drowning after being hit by rocks after drifting into a water area off a whites-only part of the 29th Street beach. Newspaper accounts allow you to reconstruct the events of those days and nights in all of their horror, with lists of the dead and injured, photographs of destroyed homes, and editorials expressing outrage and grief. Our assignment, which we will do together, is to investigate how these riots were covered by our 3 different newspapers. And more specifically, can we find the first contemporary accounts of these riots in each of our 3 newspapers? First, we go to EPL.org, the website of Evanston's library. In the search box, we type historical archives, and then make sure we are searching not in the library catalog, but on the website, which is where all of EPL's electronic resources are to be found. We do that by clicking the This Site button, as you see here, and then pressing the Enter key on our keyboard or clicking on the search glass icon. This takes us to our 3 newspaper archives. You can click on any one of them just to get into the ProQuest Historical Archives system. This is when you will need to enter your library card number and then click Log In or push the Enter key. Click on Change Databases to see a selection menu. You don't need to enter any search terms yet, and anytime after you're inside the system, you can also choose a different interface language like Spanish. This won't affect the keywords or phrases you enter. All of these search terms must still be in English because none of the newspapers that we're looking at today have content in any other language. We want to search and see articles from all 3 archives simultaneously to handle our assignment. So, check all 3 boxes and then click on the button Use Selected Databases. This screen gives you a search box for searching the historical archives of all 3 newspapers simultaneously. As we learned to do in part 2 of this series, start with a basic search. Your basic search can be, well, very basic. Just type in the word riot, or maybe all variations of the word to collect articles containing riots and rioting, linked by the word or, meaning you get any of them, any of these articles, if the articles contain any of the words beginning with R-I-O-T. If you just list the 3 words after each other, your search only looks for articles having all 3 words, and you don't want that. Best of all would be a search using the asterisk wildcard, which is what you see here, and we learned how to use that in our last tutorial. So, do the search. You then see that you are retrieving a lot of articles about other riots in the world, and this was, after all, a pretty turbulent time in U.S. and world history, just as World War I was ending. So, go back and add the keyword Chicago to your search and re-execute. Now you're getting articles about Chicago riots, but at many different times in history. So we recommend using the publication date parameter to limit to the last few days of July. We talked about how to do that in the last tutorial, but you can probably figure it out on your own anyway. And finally, to get rid of all the ads and legal notices in the newspapers having to do with the riots that we don't really need right now, limit by document type. Okay, so now we've got it down to about 70 articles. Not too many to scan through. Just remember to sort chronologically, and since we want the first articles that appeared, the oldest articles, sort your results accordingly. The 4th article listed is clearly the absolute winner. We see that in the first report there were only 2 reported fatalities. This, of course, would change over the next couple of days as more complete reports reached these newspapers. Click on the headline to see the whole article. And here it is, the entire article, and if it continues on another page, that too will be shown. If you read it, you will see that this writing was terrible, with terrible loss of life on all sides. But this is what you need to know. And obviously, you have to take all newspaper reports with a grain of salt. This is not fake news, at least not usually, but rather live reporting in the heat of the moment. Note that you can save this article and many more. We're not covering that in this tutorial, but you can use the help function on the Historical Archive site to show you how. It turns out that the first report in the Defender, at least the first report in the archive, was not until August 2nd, 1919, a Saturday. Why? Because this is when the Defender's big weekend edition came out. The Daily Defender, sadly, is not in the archive, so we don't know what the Defender's first reporting was. But at least this weekend reporting is very comprehensive, with lists of names of those killed and injured, and that of both races. So we also learned a bit more about that first victim, the young 17-year-old African boy named Eugene Williams, whose death triggered the riots in the first place. So, I think we all agree that you did very well on this assignment. Congratulations. Now you should do a few more exercises to practice your newly acquired skills. Here are 3 challenges for you. By accepting the first challenge, you learned something about the Titanic you probably didn't know, and very few other people know. That there was a near collision with another ship as it was leaving the harbor in England. By doing the second challenge, you find out how to see the front page, as well as the rest of the paper, for any particular date. And finally, the third challenge teaches you how to find editorial opinion and not just the news. So this is a tutorial, and we are very patient. You can watch this video as many times as you want to, and we won't mind repeating ourselves again and again and again. Oh, and did you actually find the front page of the January 6th, 1966 Defender? If not, well, here it is. It's kind of a parting gift for you. Next time, in the 4th and final part of this tutorial series, we are going to talk about newspaper archives that are available on the open internet. Not just at Evanston Public Library, but in all cases, using them will not cost you a cent. Some of these are based in Evanston and Chicago. Others are based in other parts of the world. But you do not need to leave your desktop or the comfort of your own home to use them. So, thank you for your time and attention today, and please contact us either in person or at the phone number below if you have any questions about any of the contents of this tutorial or the first 2. So, goodbye for now.